My name's Jake. I'm 24, the quiet one of the family, according to them. I was never the kid who demanded much. I didn't throw tantrums for the latest shoes of the newest phone. I kept to myself, did well enough in school, and worked part-time jobs when I got older to afford things on my own. My older sister, Lila, on the other hand, was the type who could get away with anything if she smiled the right way or pitched her voice just right. My parents ate it up. She wanted a car, my parents helped. She wanted trips. Somehow there was always money. Me, if I asked for something, it was usually followed by lectures about responsibility and independence. And for a while, I told myself it was fine. I didn't need much anyway. But a few weeks ago, something happened that made me question everything. I got sick. Not just a sniffle or a stomach bug, like sick. Fever that left me sweating through my sheets, body aches that made standing up feel like punishment, and a cough that clawed at my throat until it hurt to breathe. I live alone in a small apartment, and at first I thought I could ride it out with some soup and rest. Except it just got worse. The fever spiked so high one night, I nearly called an ambulance for myself. I didn't, though. Instead, I texted the family group chat, just asking if someone could maybe stop by with groceries or medicine. I wasn't even asking them to sit with me, just to drop something off. My messages were seen. Nobody responded. The next day, when I could barely make it to the kitchen to pour a glass of water, I called my mom directly. She answered, sounding busy, like I had interrupted something important. I told her I was really sick. I hadn't eaten properly in 2 days, and I just needed some help. She sighed and said, "Jake, we've all got a lot going on right now. Can't you just order delivery?" That stung. I was shivering, barely able to keep my eyes open. And my mom, who had no problem driving across town when Lila needed something trivial, was telling me to order delivery like I was asking for a 5-course meal. Later that day, Lila finally texted back. Her message was short. "Sorry, Jake, we're all just slammed right now. Hope you feel better soon." Slammed with what? I wondered. It's not like anyone in my family was running a Fortune 500 company. So I stayed in bed, weekend alone, forcing down stale crackers when I could. My fever broke after a few days, but I was drained. I thought maybe I was being dramatic. Maybe they really were just busy. And then, 2 nights later, I opened social media. There she was, Lila, posting videos of herself and the family on a road trip. Everyone was there, my parents, my cousins, even my aunt and uncle. They were laughing, singing along to music in the car, stopping at diners and passing plates of food around like something out of a commercial. The same people who didn't have time to check on me somehow had time for a cheerful weekend getaway. And me? I wasn't mentioned once. Not a single "wish Jake was here" or "too bad Jake's sick." It was like I didn't even exist. I didn't confront them right away. Honestly, I didn't have the energy. But that image stuck with me. My whole family singing and smiling, while I was curled up alone, trying to bring down a fever with cold compresses. About a week later, when I was finally able to go back to work, Lila called me out of the blue. She didn't ask how I was feeling, didn't apologize for ignoring me. Her voice was all casual, breezy, like we were just catching up. "Hey, so I was thinking," she started. "Your car is just sitting around all summer, right? I mean, you barely use it except for work. Why don't you lend it to me? I'll be traveling a lot, and it would save me from renting." I thought I misheard her at first. After everything, after leaving me completely on my own when I was sick, she had the nerve to ask for my car. I said, as calmly as I could, "Ask the ones you had time for, Lila." There was silence on her end for a moment. Then she laughed nervously and said, "Don't be so dramatic, Jake. It's just a car." But I didn't budge. I told her no and hung up before she could keep pushing. By morning, I woke up to 57 missed calls. My phone was flooded with messages. Lila, my mom, even my aunt chiming in. The most striking one came from Lila. "You're cruel, cruel for not handing over my car." After they all left me alone when I could barely stand. When I woke up that morning and saw the wall of notifications, I had to blink a few times just to make sure my phone wasn't glitching. 57 missed calls. Most of them were from Lila, but there were a good handful from my mom, too. The text messages were stacked one after the other like dominoes falling, each one worse than the last. At first, it was guilt-tripping. "Jake, your sister needs your help. Can't you just be supportive for once? Stop making everything about you." We all went through a lot, too. Then it shifted into minimization. "You weren't that sick. You exaggerate everything. You should be thankful you even have a car to lend." By the time I got to Lila's messages, the tone had sharpened into outright accusations. "You're cruel. You've always been selfish. No wonder nobody wants to deal with you." Reading those lines, I felt something inside me twist. Not just hurt, but something heavier, like a weight pressing against my chest. It wasn't the first time I'd been painted as the difficult one, but seeing it written out, message after message, made it harder to ignore. The worst part? They weren't asking how I was doing. Not one of them. The fever, the days alone, the texts I'd sent, begging for a little help. It was as if none of it ever happened. The entire focus was on Lila, on what she wanted, and on how I was standing in the way. I didn't reply. Not right away, at least. I set the phone down, tried to eat breakfast, but even the sound of the toaster popping made me jump. It felt like my phone was vibrating nonstop, like their voices had crawled into the walls of my apartment. Around noon, my mom finally left a voicemail. I hadn't heard her leave me one in years. Her voice was clipped, rehearsed almost. "Jake, it's your mother. I don't understand why you're acting like this. Lila is family. We all help each other. And right now, you're making a scene over something small. Call me back as soon as possible." Small. That word echoed in my head. Being abandoned when I was sick was small. Being asked to hand over my car, no questions, no discussion, was small. My feelings, my needs, my existence? Small. By late afternoon, I cracked and texted back. It wasn't long, just a single sentence. "I was sick and alone, and none of you showed up. Now you expect me to just hand over my car like nothing happened?" I watched the little typing bubble appear under my mom's contact, vanish, and then appear again. After a full minute, her reply came through. "You can't keep punishing your sister for living her life. She didn't do anything wrong." That was the first time I felt real anger simmer beneath the hurt, because she had done something wrong. They all had. They chose to ignore me, and then they chose to pretend it hadn't happened. And now, somehow, I was the one punishing her. I didn't respond again. But that evening, the phone calls started up once more. My aunt, my uncle, even my cousin, who hadn't spoken a word to me in months. Their approach was always the same. Soften me up with false concern, then pivot to the car. "Hey, Jake, we heard you weren't feeling well. Hope you're doing better now. By the way, Lila really needs transportation this summer." It was like reading from the same script. The pattern was impossible to miss. By the third call, I realized this wasn't about a car anymore. It was about control. It was about me finally saying no after years of swallowing my pride and letting them dictate what counted as important. And suddenly, my refusal wasn't just inconvenient, it was dangerous. Dangerous to the fragile little system they had where Lila was the star, and I was the afterthought who stayed quiet and didn't make waves. That night, I turned my phone off for the first time in years. I sat in silence, the only sound being the hum of my refrigerator. And for the first time since I was sick, I felt something close to clarity. I froze the moment I saw her in the hallway. Lila wasn't just casually standing there like a neighbor dropping by. She had that calculated smile on her face, the one I'd hated since childhood. It was polite enough on the surface, but it had a sharp edge, the kind that always meant she was trying to get her way. "Hey, Jake," she said softly, tilting her head like we were in a scene from a movie, and she was supposed to charm me into submission. I thought we could talk. I didn't move. I didn't invite her in. My apartment had always been my sanctuary, and after the last few weeks, I wasn't about to let her waltz in and turn it into another stage for her theatrics. "You're mad at me," she continued, stepping a fraction closer, as though proximity could erase the weeks of silence and neglect. "I don't know why you're taking this so personally. I just need the car for the summer. You can't be selfish forever." Her words made my chest tighten. Selfish, that word again. That had been her weapon all my life, turning my boundaries, my feelings, into flaws. And I had almost fallen for it in the past. Almost. But not this time. "Selfish," I finally said, my voice steady, even though my stomach was twisting. "You and the rest of the family left me alone when I was sick. Nobody called. Nobody brought food. Nobody even asked if I was breathing. And now you come here and say I'm selfish for not handing over my car?" Her smile flickered for the briefest second. She knew I had a point. I could see it in her eyes darted to the side, calculating, measuring, thinking of her next line. "It's not the same," she said, a little too quickly. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. We all had things to do. You weren't the only one." I cut her off. "Nothing? 2 nights alone? Barely able to eat, barely able to walk, and that's nothing? And then you post videos of your road trip, everyone laughing, everyone eating, and I'm not mentioned once? You think that's nothing?" Her mouth opened, then closed. I could tell she wasn't expecting me to actually call her out like this. Usually, I just swallowed, nodded, and let her manipulate the story. "But not anymore. I'm not giving you my car," I said firmly. "Ask the ones who had time for me, the ones who actually care if I survive a week at home sick." Her expression hardened then. I recognized it instantly, the mask slipping. Lila had always been able to maintain a charm, but beneath it was a streak of arrogance and entitlement. She was used to getting what she wanted, and when she didn't, she snapped. "You're impossible," she spat, her voice rising just slightly. "Do you have any idea how selfish you're being? I can't believe you, after everything I've done for you. You." I laugh quietly, bitterly. "Everything you've done for me? You mean the times you've gaslit me, belittled me, left me out, and now expect me to bend over backward because it suits you?" Her hands went to her hips. "You don't know how the world works. You're never going to get anywhere in life if you keep thinking like this. You think I owe you? You think Mom and Dad owe you? Everyone's just trying to live their lives, and I've had enough of listening to you lecture me about how to live my life," I interrupted, voice rising now too. "Do you know what it's like to be ignored when you're sick? To have your family act like you don't exist? You have no idea, because everything's always about you." For a moment, she just stared at me. Her eyes narrowed, lips pressed into a tight line. I could see the gears turning in her head. That was the part one hated the most, her always planning, always scheming. She didn't yell, she didn't cry. She plotted, and that's when it hit me. If I wanted her to stop controlling me, I couldn't just say no. I had to make her regret even asking. I spent the next few days quietly observing. Lila tried everything. Texts dripping with fake concern, calls at odd hours, even showing up again unannounced, trying to guilt me into giving her the car. Each attempt was predictable, but each one revealed more about how far she would go. And I started taking notes. Literally. I documented every interaction, every lie, every manipulative word. Then I started my plan. First, I secured the car. I changed the locks to the garage where it was kept, moved it behind the building, and installed a tracking device. Not to spy on her, but so she couldn't claim she lost it or have someone else take it. It was the first step in taking control. Next, I contacted a few of her friends, people she trusted and bragged to about how easily she could get what she wanted. I started planting small seeds, not lies, not attacks, just the truth in the right places. How she treated me when I was sick, how she manipulated the family, how she demanded things without any consideration. I didn't overdo it. I didn't make it sound like revenge. I just laid facts. And then I waited because I knew Lila thrived on attention, on her sense of superiority. I also knew that eventually she would make a move too big to ignore, and that's when my revenge would take shape. It didn't take long. A week after our hallway confrontation, she showed up again, but this time she wasn't smiling. She wasn't trying to charm me. She came with a friend, someone I hadn't met before, and she wasn't asking politely. "I don't have time for games, Jake," she said, her tone sharper than ever. "I'm taking the car. You're just making this worse for yourself." I met her gaze calmly. Inside, though my pulse was racing, this was it, the point of no return. I didn't move, didn't flinch. "You can try," I said quietly, "but you're going to regret it." Her friend hesitated for a moment, sensing the tension, but Lila waved them off. "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. He'll cave." I smiled faintly, though it was more a grim line than a happy expression, because I knew something Lila didn't. I had control. She thought she was walking in and taking what she wanted, but every move she made was being carefully watched, cataloged, and prepared for a blowback she couldn't anticipate. And that's when it happened. The moment I realized just how far this could go. Lila reached for the car keys in my hand. I didn't hand them over. And the look on her face when she realized I wasn't bluffing. It was the first time in my life I'd seen her truly stunned. Not angry, not smug, stunned. Lila's hand hovered over the keys, trembling ever so slightly. That's when I made my move. Calmly, I set my phone down on the counter, opened a group chat, and sent a single message to everyone in the family group. "Jake's sick. He's been alone for days. None of you." Within minutes, my phone buzzed nonstop. Lila's smugness wavered the second she saw her siblings' names lighting up with reactions. Messages from my mom, my aunt, my cousins. Only, instead of sympathy for her, they were lashing out in support of me. "She's always manipulative," my cousin wrote. "You can't just demand things, Lila. That's ridiculous." Another text popped up. "I didn't realize how cruel you were," said my aunt. I could see Lila stiffen, and I knew she didn't expect anyone to side against her. She had built this little empire of influence inside our family, and for the first time, it crumbled in real time. "Jake, delete that," she hissed, voice low, almost desperate. "You can't." "I can't," I said, my voice combat firm, and I did. Her friend stepped back, confused. Lila looked around frantically, realizing the narrative was no longer hers to control. She tried to argue, tried to twist it, but everyone had already seen through her act. Messages poured in with photos, stories from relatives, little reminders of times Lila had manipulated them, times she had thrown tantrums, times she had lied. I hadn't sent a single lie. Every word was truth. "You don't understand," Lila stammered, panic rising. But no one was listening. That weekend, I received a call from the car rental agency. Lila had tried to rent a car in her name, but she was blocked. Apparently, she had racked up unpaid tickets and fees in the past that made her ineligible. Her friends had already started distancing themselves after my messages circulated through the family network. People who once obeyed her influence quietly started refusing favors, pointing out her history of selfishness and manipulation. My parents didn't call me to yell or beg. They didn't visit to apologize. The truth was, they were humiliated. They had blindly supported Lila, encouraged her sense of entitlement, and now their role in her manipulation was exposed. They were furious. but all of their anger was misdirected toward me. They sent texts. "You've made things worse than they needed to be. You're tearing the family apart. Lila was only asking for help, and you made it personal." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The car stayed where it was. Lila didn't come back. She stopped showing up at family gatherings. She stopped texting me. Even my parents, who had always coddled her, now kept their distance. The balance of power had shifted without me ever raising my voice or losing control. In the weeks that followed, life settled into a quiet routine. My car was safe, my boundaries were respected, and the family dynamic had irreversibly changed. Lila had lost influence, credibility, and friends. My parents remained cold toward me, but the difference now was that they couldn't push me around. They had learned I wouldn't bend. I went back to work, returned to my routines, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the afterthought in my own family. I didn't forgive anyone, and I had no desire to. Lila and my parents had shown who they truly were: selfish, manipulative, and entitled. They had tried to isolate me, control me, and make me the villain for asserting my boundaries. And now, the truth was out for everyone to see. I didn't call the family. I didn't visit. I didn't ask for apologies. I didn't need to. The revenge wasn't a grand public spectacle. It was simple, surgical, and effective. They had finally experienced a taste of the consequences of their entitlement, and the humiliation they faced was enough to teach them a lesson they couldn't spin away. As for me, I finally felt a sense of peace I hadn't known before. I still live alone, still mind my own business, but now I do so with confidence. I know my boundaries matter. I know that when someone tries to manipulate or control me, I can stand my ground. And I know that the family who once tried to dictate my life is no longer capable of doing so. Sometimes, when I see Lila in family photos online, I scroll past without a second thought. She's smiling, pretending everything is fine. But I know better. The mask is cracked. The truth is out. And the best part is, she has no way to fix it. I'm not cruel. I'm not selfish. I'm finally just safe. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you liked this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.